Hello my crafty friends, it's me Lisa, the DIY Diva, and I have a bunch of brand new Dollar Tree Christmas crafts for you to make for this holiday season. So I found this picture frame at Dollar Tree. I haven't seen these very often, but this was the perfect size of frame for the craft I want to do. This tile from Dollar Tree almost is exactly the same size. It wasn't quite, so I did have to cut it down just a little bit. Now it does have a self-sticking backing, so I attached it to the cardboard, which is the back of the frame, and then I cut it down to size, and then to make sure that it was going to stay in place, I did use a little bit of Dollar Tree wood glue. And then I just smoothed that glue down. Then I came back with some burnt umber paint and I painted the entire tile with the burnt umber paint. And once that had dried, I came back with some folk art chalk paint, and this is in white, and I painted the entire tile with the white paint because I did this backwards. I wanted to have the white be the background and then the burnt umber be the accent. So I went ahead and painted everything with the white chalk paint. Next, I came back with a smaller paintbrush and I applied a little bit of the burnt umber onto all of the raised accents of the tile. These tiles are so much fun to craft with. I'm sure you've seen other people use them, but there's so many things that you can do with these tiles, especially during Christmas. And once I was finished doing a little bit of accents on the raised portions of the tile, I came back with a chip brush and I lightly coated the entire tile. I had these pine branches that were left over from last Christmas, so I just cut off little individual branches of the pine, and I'm going to make this a wreath. So I took those individual branches and just hot glued them onto the tile in a circle pattern. So this is going to be the beginning of my wreath. I did come back with some extra branches to make my wreath a little bit fuller and a little bit thicker. I wasn't worried if it was perfect. Sometimes I think it looks better if there's a little bit of variation. I don't want a perfectly round wreath. And I wanted it to look like it had freshly snowed on my wreath, so I painted the wreath with a little bit of white chalk paint. Next, I made a more primitive or rustic style bow, and I glued that to the top center of my wreath. I did come back with some extra loops of that ribbon just to make my bow a little bit fuller. So even if you're not perfect with making these bows, all you have to do is add a few more loops to the bow. Then I had these jingle bells from Hobby Lobby from last Christmas. They have a rusty appearance to them, so I didn't have to enhance them at all. And I tied a jingle bell to a piece of jute twine, and then I took another jingle bell and did the same thing. Next, I took both of those pieces of jute twine and tied them together so my jingle bells are connected. And then I used a little bit of hot glue to secure the jingle bells right underneath the bow. And for the finishing touch, I added a small pine cone. Now I didn't show you, but I did paint the frame of the picture. And once everything was dry, I just put the picture frame back on top. and secured it to the back, and look at that. This is so pretty and it was so easy to make. I love how you can see the raised pattern of the tile on the backing of this. I think it's so pretty. For this project, I took a package of the bamboo skewers and one of the cutting boards that you hang up that has all the writing all over it, but I want this to be more like a cutting board. So I started by putting some wood glue all over the cutting board, and I only put the glue about 1/4 of the way up. Then I started securing the bamboo skewers to the cutting board. Now, at first I started by just doing 1 or 2 skewers at a time, but as I worked with this, I found it easier to do multiples of the skewers because that kind of helps to keep everything in line as I was going up the cutting board. And even if some of that wood glue gets onto the front of the skewers, it really won't matter unless you're staining this. For my cutting board, I'm going to just be using burnt umber paint. That's like my favorite paint for crafting. So it doesn't really matter if the wood glue gets onto the front of the skewers. I worked my way all the way up to the top of the cutting board. And then I cut pieces of the skewers so that they were smaller right at the top. I didn't worry about the hole. I went ahead and covered that up. And then I allowed this to dry overnight. Now, what I didn't show you was I took it out into my garage and I cut it with my scroll saw. But if you don't have a scroll saw, you could use a jigsaw as well. And once everything was cut and sanded so the edges are all smooth, then I came back with some burnt umber paint and some water. So I just painted the entire cutting board with the burnt umber paint, and the water really helps to give different shades or different levels of lightness and darkness to the cutting board so it doesn't all look the same. If I wanted it a little bit lighter, I just added a little bit more water. And if I wanted it a little bit darker, I just added a little bit more paint. This was pretty much my cutting board. So I came back with some ribbon to make a bow, and I just secured that to the top section of the cutting board. And I do like that, but it does need a little bit of something extra. And I found this beaded garland at Walmart and I really liked it. So what I decided I wanted to do was make a bead strand, like a farmhouse bead strand. So I cut it down to the size that I wanted it to be, and then I added some tassels to the ends. And look at that, now I have a very pretty bead strand that I can use for my holiday decorating. And I did decide to go ahead and add some greenery just to the top of the cutting board because I like to add greenery to everything. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I think it gives it just a little bit of something extra. And now I can take my Christmas bead strand and just drape it around the cutting board. And here is the finished project. This is the cutting board along with the bead strand. And I don't know about you, but I love working smarter and not harder. So finding small beaded garland like this and turning it into a strand of beads for Christmas, to me, that is a genius and simple idea that anyone can do. Now for this project, I have a Dollar Tree votive holder, and what I've been doing is wrapping yarn all the way around it. And I'm going to make a Christmas tree with this. And I had this yarn from Hobby Lobby that I've had forever, and I really just wanted to use it up. So I thought it would be fun to cover up a votive holder and basically turn this into a container to hold a Christmas tree. And I just worked my way all the way around the votive holder with my glue gun and the yarn. And I made sure to cover up the top edge of the votive holder as well. I don't want to see any of that coming through. I just want to see that yarn.
Let's go outside, the snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile.
Then I came back with some floral foam. I think this is like a dry foam. This stuff is really fun to work with. And I cut it down to the size it needed to be to fit inside of the votive holder.
Get all the Christmas songs that we love.
Then I took more of those pine branches and I just stuck them inside of it. So my idea is to make this look like a little Christmas tree. I wanted to keep this simple, so I didn't add any ornaments or anything like that, but I could see where that would be really pretty too. If you added some ornaments, maybe a star, even some lights to the tree itself, I think it would be really pretty. But I wanted simple, so mine is just a simple Christmas tree. And I just kept adding extra pieces of the branches onto the tree. I added some to the base as well to make it look a little bit fuller at the bottom. I don't want it to look like pine branches that have just been shoved down into foam. I wanted to give it a little bit of a shape so that it looks like this was intentional. Next, I found some really pretty paper. This is literally just paper that had a fun pattern on it. So I cut a wavy edge all the way around it. And then I used a snowflake sticker that I got from Hobby Lobby in this big book of stickers. And what I'm going to do is fold that over and secure it with hot glue so that it looks like it's a tag for the bottom of my Christmas tree. And this was so easy, and I think it looks really nice. It's very simple, and this is something you could definitely do multiple times with different colors of yarn or even different styles of Christmas trees. Now, I know you guys have seen this, but this is my first time ever doing it. I have always wanted to do the Epsom salt and put that onto glass. So what I did was I took Epsom salt from the Dollar Tree, and then I took some iridescent glitter and I mixed that together because I want to have a little bit of bling or sparkle with my fake snow. And I just blended that together into a big mason jar. Then I took a large mason jar that I got from Dollar Tree and I painted it with Mod Podge. And then I just sprinkled my glitter and Epsom salt concoction onto the jar. I did pat it down a little bit because I really want to make sure that that Epsom salt and the glitter is going to stick to the jar. I also wanted to make sure that the Epsom salt mixture was all the way around to the bottom, so that's why I dipped the jar into the Epsom salt mixture. You can definitely see the glitter in with the Epsom salt. I also did it with a smaller mason jar as well. Then I took the same ribbon that I used for my cutting board and I glued that around the top edge of the jars. I don't want to see the threads of the jar top. That's why I decided to use the ribbon. And once I had that ribbon attached, then I just took some jute twine and tied it around the neck of the jar. And I made a jute bow that I could put onto the little knot that I had created. And to finish it up, I took a tiny little pine cone and I just secured that with hot glue right underneath the center of the bow. I also found these really cute, tiny little pine cones with some red pip berries, and I individually glued a couple of those snow-covered pine cones right above the larger pine cone. I thought it would look pretty with those red berries, so I put a couple of red berries on as well. And here are my beautiful, beautiful candle holders. Aren't they pretty? Now the small one was too small to have the tea light candle go in, so I just tipped it upside down and put it on top. But I think they turned out really pretty. If you haven't tried these yet, you've got to try it. It is such an easy but beautiful decoration. I want to show you how to make a frazzled snowman. These things are so cute. And you can make it with things that you already have. So like trash, I have this coffee creamer container, and once it was cleaned out, then I removed the label from the bottle. So now I'm left with this plastic bottle. You don't necessarily have to use a bottle like this. Any type of bottle will work. This bottle is a little bit tall for the snowman I'm going to make, so I'm going to cut the bottom off. So I'm going to remove about an inch from the bottom of the container. Now, if you're going to be doing this, please be very careful if you're going to use a knife like I'm using. I find it a little bit easier to get started by using a knife at first. And then I'm coming back with scissors and just removing the excess because I don't want my snowman to be wobbly. Once I was happy with the base of my snowman, then I came back with the fabric, and I found this fabric on Amazon, and it's a faux fur, but it's got a really long pile to it. Now, if you're going to be working with a long pile like this type of faux fur, you don't want to just cut down the material because then you're going to cut the fur itself. So one way that you can do this, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm just going to smooth out basically a seam. And then I'm going to carefully take my scissors and just cut the material, being extra careful not to cut any of the fur. This is one way that you can do it. I'll show you another way in a minute. So this is the piece of fur that I'm going to be using. I measured it off using the coffee creamer container, and this is going to be probably a little bit long for my snowman. But this way you don't have to have specific measurements. You can just use your container. So I'm going to be working with the back of the fabric, and I ran a bead of hot glue down about 3/4 of the weight of the fabric. Then I took my coffee creamer container and I secured it to the fabric. I did the bottom part first, then I came back and secured the top. And as you can see, the top is a little bit taller than the container. That's okay, that's on purpose. And then I just carefully rolled the fabric around the container, and I took little pit stops to use a little bit of hot glue along the process. By doing it this way, I don't have to worry that the fabric is going to droop down. So probably about 1/4 of a turn, then I would come back with my glue gun and glue it down. Then I would come back with my fabric and glue it and then roll the container over the top. And like I said, this fabric piece was a little bit long, so I did remove the excess by cutting on the back. Now again, I'm only cutting the fabric portion. I'm being very cautious not to cut the fur portion. This way I don't get cut marks in the fur. And then I'm going to continue the process of gluing and wrapping the fur around the bottle. Now I did make a point to make sure it was nice and straight, just because this bottle has a wider base. So when I'm rolling the fur around the top, it will gather just a little bit, but that's okay. It won't affect the overall end result. And once I got to the very end of the fabric, I ran one more bead of the hot glue along the very edge, and then I secured it to the container. And once I had the fabric in place, I just couldn't help myself. I had to mess around with the fabric a little bit and just kind of fluff it up just to see how fluffy my Frazzled Snowman will end up. Next, I flip the container over, and what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of hot glue right around that bottom edge. So I'm just going to fold the fabric right over that very bottom lip of the container. I don't have a lot of extra room, but I just need a little bit just to go over the edge of the lip. That will make it so that the material is on the bottom and is not rubbing on the plastic container. And I just worked my way around, gluing tiny sections of the fabric to the container until all of the fabric was attached to the bottom. Then I flipped it over to the top, and you can see where it's kind of bunched up just a little bit. But that's all right. That's not a big deal. So I'm just going to use a little bit more hot glue, and I'm going to tuck it down into the top. And even where the fabric was doubled up a little bit, I just continued to push it down into that top open section. And anywhere that there was fabric that was not attached, I used a little more hot glue and just repeated that same step. Then I took my silicone stir stick and I just pushed it down into the center to make sure all of the fabric is pushed down and that will not show on the end project. And a little more fluffing, can't help but to fluff it. Look at that. That is just so cute. So even though it looks like I'm just fluffing it up and just having fun, well, I'm not gonna lie, I was having fun fluffing it up, but I'm actually trying to figure out where I'm going to have the neck of the snowman to be. And now I want to work on the parts that are going to be the face of the snowman. So I've got this orange clay. It's like Sculpey clay. And I'm going to roll out a couple of pieces because I'm going to bake this clay because this will be the carrot nose for my snowman. Now I'm going to do a few of these because I do have a few more snowman crafts that I want to make. And I figured, you know what? I might as well make a few of these little carrots so I have them for upcoming projects. Once I had the shape of the carrot, then I did come back with a knife and lightly draw across the carrot itself. This is going to put little depressions, little lines into each of the carrots to really make it look like one. And this clay is so much fun to work with. I think I got this on Amazon, but I love this stuff. So you make your project whatever you want it to be, then you put it in your oven for anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit to have the clay harden. I think I want to see if I can also make some peppermints with this clay. I think that would be really fun, especially for all of the Christmas projects. Now, once I had the carrots baking, then I came back to my snowman, and just like I started, I'm trying to determine where the center or where the neck is going to be. Then I didn't have a scarf, so I'm going to be using this fabric and I'm going to make a scarf. I saw this at Walmart. It was so pretty and it came in red and green. So once I had a section of this fabric torn off, then I folded the fabric in half and secured it with some hot glue. I did this down the entire piece of the fabric. This is going to be the scarf for my snowman. Then I came back with some scissors and I cut slits in the fabric on both ends These are going to be the little fringy pieces that are on the ends of the scarf. Next, I'm just going to try to separate some of that fur from the faux fur, and now I'm going to tie the scarf in place. So I'm going to tie a square knot. So first I'm going to figure out where it's going to go and just pull it pretty tight. And then come back and do the second portion of the square knot. There is the scarf for my snowman. That is just so cute. I love that. And now I'm just going to fluff up the fur a little bit more. And this is for his face. So now I'm going to come back using some very sharp embroidery scissors just to remove some of that fur. And I know some of you might be cringing because, oh my gosh, she's cutting into the fur. But this is a necessary step to trim away the fur that would be in place where the face of the snowman is going to be. And if you just cut down into it, then you're not going to get those really harsh, sharp line cuts that you're going to be able to see. So now that I have my snowman's face cut out and ready to go, I'm going to put on the eyes. I didn't have any black beads, so I just painted over some pearls that I had. And if you don't have beads, you can also make half beads using your hot glue gun. That's what this is. But I did have these beads, so I went ahead and glued them to the snowman's face. Look at how cute that is. Next, I decided which carrot I wanted to use for his nose. And then I used some hot glue to glue that in place. Now you can see the B7000 up in the corner. That is what I used for the snowman's eyes, and I used the hot glue for his nose. Now I'm going to come back with some blush, and I'm just going to brush that on so you can see his cheeks. And for the buttons down the front, I decided to use these tiny jingle bells. So I just took 3 tiny jingle bells and I glued them down the center right underneath the scarf. Isn't that adorable? Now I found this ornament at home and it was so cute, and I really thought I wanted to add this to the top of my snowman. So I removed the hanger so that it's just a hat. And that does look really cute, but for this snowman, you know, I decided I didn't really want to add a hat. I just want to have that frazzled snowman. I think it's perfect just like that. Now, if you wanted to, you could also add some arms using some sticks. But again, I wanted to keep this snowman just like this, just natural. Well, as natural as a frazzled snowman can be. But I really do like how this turned out, and I think it's a really fun project, something easy that you could make. Add to your Christmas decorations this year. It's super cute, and hopefully I showed you it was super easy to make. And I did want to include the snowman hat, so I just put it off to the side of the snowman, making my vignette complete. So I have my pizza pan, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of these half beads that I've had for a long time. And I'm going to glue the beads all the way around the edge of the pizza pan. Now, once I find the beads that are all the same size, I'm going to use some E6000 and I'm going to glue these all the way around that rim of the pizza pan. It's always fun to come up with an idea of something really unique that you can make using stuff that you already have. And this is another pizza pan that I had, and I had already spray painted it black, and I glued the beads all the way around the rim of the pizza pan. And then I came back with some ivory colored acrylic paint that I had added in some baking soda to give it some texture. I don't want this to look like a pizza pan, and adding in that extra texture with the baking soda really helps the paint to stick to whatever project it is that you're doing. And I have two different colors between the beads that are plastic and also the black spray paint. And this ivory color paint is just going to be the base coat for my project. And I also found that by pouncing my paintbrush onto the surface, it gave a little bit of extra texture, which is the look that I'm really going for with this project. And once the paint had dried, I came back with some red paint. Now this is just an acrylic red paint, and I'm using a chip brush to repeat the pouncing to again add more texture to the overall look of the pizza pan. I did make sure to really get in between all of the nooks and crannies of the beads. Adding those beads does make it a little bit more difficult for painting, but it will be worth it in the end. And even looking at this pizza pan right now, I'm thinking this is so pretty, and I'm having other projects dance through my head right now thinking of what I could do with this beaded edge pizza pan. But this project is all about Santa, and I found this Santa that I printed out from Creative Fabrica. They have so many awesome different files that you can use for crafting. And I printed the Santa on regular copy paper, and then I cut Santa out. And I didn't do it perfectly. There's still a little bit of white around the edges, but I just wanted the Santa cut out. So once I had Santa all cut out, then I moved back over to the pizza pan, and I used some Mod Podge because that's going to secure Santa to the pizza pan. I wouldn't say it's a generous coat of Mod Podge, but I just want to have it act as a glue with the Santa. And then I just secured Santa in place. And I used a little more Mod Podge to really secure the edges of the Santa cutout onto the pizza pan. I did come back and add a little bit more Mod Podge to the center of Santa as well. And the brush that I'm using is actually from Dollar Tree. It's more of a stiff bristled brush, so again, it's going to add a little bit of texture to my cutout. Then I went ahead and added Mod Podge to the rest of the pan. I also did the Mod Podge around the raised edges of the half beads. Once it was dry, I came back with some black paint and I outlined the Santa cutout. Again, I wasn't going for perfect. I just wanted to cover up any of the white edges of the copy paper. I also went back and any of the lines that were in his beard or in his hat, I went over those with the black paint as well. Of course, Santa has to have bright eyes, so I did do his eyes over. And then I wanted him to have some rosy cheeks, so I added a little bit of paint and just kind of dry brushed that on. I did come back with a little bit of white to make it look a little more natural and not quite so pink. I did go ahead and do his lips as well. And once the black paint on his eyes had dried, I came back with some white and just added some catch light to his eyes. And I also did the same thing on the holly berries that's on his hat. I came back with some green paint, and the holly leaves, I just added a little bit more green to them. And then I took some white puffy paint, and this also came from Dollar Tree. And anywhere where there was white, like on Santa's hat, I just added in a little bit of puffy paint. This is going to give it a little bit more dimension. And while I was doing the white of his hat, I thought it would be fun to also do his mustache, his eyebrows, and even his beard. The white puffy paint definitely gives a little bit more texture, and it seems like the more texture that you add to a project, to me, it seems like it just elevates the look. So on the beard, I just added some squiggles and some different lines to give it a little bit of something extra. Next, I came back with some gold rub and buff, and using a small chip brush, I just highlighted all of the beads around the outside of the pizza pan. Unfortunately, the white puffy paint wasn't quite dry, and I did end up dragging some of the puffy paint onto the red area of the pan. And I should have been a little bit more patient, but I was just so excited to do the project, and I guess it's not that big of a deal. But in the future, I would probably have waited a little bit longer for the puffy paint to completely dry before moving on to the rub and buff. But I do like how the rub and buff picks up the texture of all of the painting that I've done on this pizza pan. And here is my finished Santa. Oh my goodness, I am so excited about this project. This was so easy to do, and it was so much fun. I love all of the texture on the pan as well as the different colors on the Santa. And honestly, I don't think this looks like a pizza pan anymore. So I have this mug that I got from Dollar Tree, and I want to make it look like it has milk in it. So I'm going to take some Dixie Belle chalk paint, and I'm going to paint that on the inside of the mug. And the reason I'm painting it on the inside is because I'm trying to make it look like a real glass of milk. And by painting it on the inside, then it still has that nice shine to it, just like a real glass of milk would. Next, I'm going to paint a couple of these marshmallows, and sometimes you can find these at the Dollar Tree, but I actually found these on Amazon. So even though they're white, I'm going to give them each a coat of white paint. Have you seen those marshmallow buddies? They are so cute. And while a lot of people make them, sometimes they don't really show the whole process. So that's what I want to share with you today. And I'm going to be making two different displays. So I'm using two marshmallows. And once the marshmallows have a coat of paint, I'm going to set them off to dry. And then I'm going to take this air dry clay. Now this is a foam clay. I got it at Hobby Lobby, but I'm also going to put a recipe down below in case you want to do this and you don't have air dry clay. What I'm going to do is make cookies. So I'm just taking pieces of the air dry clay and I'm going to roll it into a ball, and then I'm going to flatten it out because I want to make these look like cookies. Now, if you use your fingers and just push them down into it a little bit, it really does give it that texture like a cookie would have. And I wasn't sure how many cookies I would need. So for these projects, I made 12 cookies, but I want them to be chocolate chip cookies. So I'm also going to take some air dry clay and tear off little tiny pieces because these are going to be my chocolate chips. And because these pieces are so small, they dried relatively quickly. So now I have to paint the cookies. So I'm taking the individual chocolate chips and I'm putting them onto a strip of painter's tape so they'll stay in place when I'm painting them. And I'm just using burnt umber acrylic paint. Now for the cookies themselves, I want them to have that golden brown color. So I play around with different acrylic paints to get the color that I wanted it to be, but that was a little bit dark and not quite golden brown. So I came back with some Deco Art Salted Caramel paint and Folk Art Cafe au Lait paint and blended those together. I also added in a little bit of glossy Mod Podge because that's going to give it a little bit more of a glossy finish. It won't be totally glossy, but it will take that flat appearance away from the acrylic paint. After I mixed the colors together, then I just painted all of the cookies. I painted the sides first, first, and then once I could put the cookie down, then I came back and painted the top. And I'm not sure if you can really tell, but this color combination is definitely very close to what a real cookie would look like. Once the cookies were dry, I had gone ahead and put some of the chocolate chips in place, and I'm just removing them from the backer. And don't these look like real cookies? Now by this time, the paint in the mug had dried, but I want to fill the top. So I've got this piece of floral foam, and I'm gonna cut it in half just so that it will fit down into the mug. Then I came back with some more white chalk paint, and I painted all the way around the edge. Just in case any of that foam would peek through, I wanna make sure that it's white and there's no green that would be showing. Then I came back with a little bit more of that white paint just to go around the top edge of the mug a little bit more, just to make sure there isn't going to be anything that's going to show through the mug. And then I put the foam in while it was wet. And I did use a vinyl weeding tool just to push it down a little bit. And once I had the foam in place, then I wanted to make this paint a little bit thicker. So I came back with some modeling paste and added that into my chalk paint. Then I also added a little bit of the puffy paint, and I did find this puffy paint at Dollar Tree, so that was pretty neat. And then I added in a little bit of just plain white acrylic paint. Now what I'm going to do is just paint that all over top of the green foam that's down into the mug. By adding in that modeling paste, it makes it more thick. Then I just had to wait for it to dry. So while that was drying, then I came back to my marshmallows, and I'm using a little bit more puffy paint, and this is just in the color brown. I got this at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just putting this right around the top edge of the marshmallows. My goal is to make this look like hot fudge that's dripping down. And in the past, I have used hot glue for this, but this paint is a lot more affordable, and it has a very nice high gloss finish, and it just looks really nice. And it really does look like hot fudge. Next, I wanted to use this bake shop clay. I got this at Walmart for $1. And I want to make some peppermint, so peppermint sticks that I'm gonna use as a straw that's going to fit down into the mug of milk. So first I took a section of the white clay and rolled it and then just kind of smushed it down. So that's gonna be the center of my peppermint. Next, I came back with some more of the white clay and rolled it pretty thin because I'm gonna have this go around the larger white piece of clay. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the red. I'm going to roll out basically a couple of ropes of this red clay that are similar in size to the smaller ropes of the white clay. And I'm usually able to find this clay at Walmart, which I'm really impressed with. This stuff is so much fun to work with. I think it's actually a little bit easier than the Sculpey clay. And the Bake Shop clay is made by Sculpey, but it's a lot cheaper at $1 a package. So now that I have the red clay rolled into the ropes, I'm going to cut it down so that it's matching the white clay. Now what I'm going to do is alternate the white and the red, the smaller ropes, and I'm going to put that all the way around the white larger piece of clay. And I'm just alternating the white and the red all the way around that larger piece. And once I have all of the pieces in place, then I'm just going to roll it so that they're all joined together. And this is one way that you can make fake peppermint candies. Now I have a peppermint that I can use in my creation. So now I'm going to take that clay and I'm going to just continue to roll it out with my hand. That's going to make the red and the white clay join together a little bit more. And it doesn't matter if it's exactly perfect, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to twist the clay. And can you see how this looks just like a peppermint stick? And the more you twist the clay, the longer it gets. And by twisting it, that's what's going to give it that peppermint look. And I can continue to twist it and roll it, and then I can have an even longer piece of peppermint. Next, I'll come back with an X-Acto knife and cut the peppermint rope into strips. And you can see I've got some candy canes that I made, but my main goal was to make a peppermint stick or peppermint twist that I can use as a straw in the milk. Now I had the lid of a container that I got from Dollar Tree, and I was hoping that I would be able to just paint it with some red acrylic paint. And this is going to be the plate that my cookies and my marshmallow and the mug of milk is going to sit on. So I painted the inside of the lid as well as all the way around the top edge. The bottom isn't going to show, so I didn't worry about painting that. But if you want perfection, go ahead and paint it. Now this is what it looked like when it dried, and it wasn't quite the color I wanted. So I got this majestic red Rust-Oleum spray paint, and I just did another coat of that over top of what I had already painted. That is more what I was thinking it would look like. Now I also found this round plate at Hobby Lobby, and I wanted to see what this would look like. So I did go ahead and use the spray paint on that plate as well. Next, I use my M1 Ultra to cut out some vinyl so I can put it on the mug. Now it's really hard to see, but it does say Milk for Santa. After I was done with that, I came back into my craft room, and now I'm going to put everything together. So for the little marshmallows, I'm going to draw a face on, and I'm just using a black acrylic paint marker to draw a little face. For me, it's easier if I just draw their eyes closed, and then I don't have to worry about adding the eyes. So I did that, and then I added a mouth. Next, I came back with these little tiny fake sprinkles, and I just took the peppermint ones and I just used a little bit of glue to attach them to the sides, right on either side of the marshmallow's mouth. And while the marshmallows were drying, I came back with the vinyl and I attached that to the front of the mug. And I just wrote out the words Milk for Santa, then cut it out with the vinyl. Then I secured the vinyl to the front of the mug and then removed the transfer tape. This is another reason why it's good to paint the inside of the mug and not the outside, because I don't want to end up peeling off any of that paint when I'm removing the transfer tape. So now I'm going to start assembling my marshmallows. So I'm going to take the cookies that have the chocolate chips, and I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to secure that to the top of the marshmallows. Next, I'm going to come back with some more hot glue and put it on the bottom of my mug, and I'm going to secure that in place on the tray that I made. Then I'm going to take some of the cookies that don't have chocolate chips on them, and I'm going to glue them down to the bottom of the tray. And if you're doing this project and you want more chocolate chips on your cookies, that's fine. You can do whatever you want, but I knew most of these cookies weren't going to really be showing. That was why I didn't do chocolate chips on all of them. because it is a little time consuming to make all of those tiny chocolate chips. Then I decided where I wanted the marshmallow to be placed, and I want it to be placed next to the milk. And this is another reason why I have so many of these cookies, is because the marshmallow is going to be glued to the top of the cookies. So it looks like a marshmallow on a plate of cookies with a mug of milk for Santa. And I did forget to tell you that I did bake my clay, so 275 degrees for 30 minutes, and then I let it cool down before applying it with some hot glue to the top of my mug. And I wanted to be a little bit extra, so I did do another peppermint straw. I also made a bow that I can attach to my mug. And I thought it would look nice to put it on the back right at the handle. So I used a little bit of hot glue to secure that in place. So far, this is what this project looks like. I thought it would look nice with some peppermints sprinkled throughout the cookies, so I just took some peppermints. I believe I found these at Hobby Lobby. And I glued them in place along with some smaller peppermints. Just gluing them in random places around the bottom of the tray. And I did want to add a little bit of whipped cream to the top of my marshmallow, so I came back with some Fast and Final spackle. And I mixed in a little bit of that white puffy paint. And after I blended it together, I put it into a pastry bag. And I think you'll notice I didn't use one of the little tips on the end because I wanted to show you don't necessarily have to have that. I'm just going to cut the very bottom so that the frosting bag is pretty much a very fine tip. And then I'm just going to apply some of my frosting to the cookie that's on top of my marshmallow. And then I came back with some more of those fake sprinkles and put that onto my whipped cream. And then I made another bow to attach to the marshmallow. And there's my milk for Santa and cookies with a marshmallow. But I thought it might look nice with a little bit of hot fudge on the plate as well. So I came back with the brown puffy paint and just added little accents of the paint so that it looks like hot fudge is dripping down the sides of the tray. And because I had that small plate that I got from Hobby Lobby, I did have enough items that I had made that I could make another tray with cookies and the marshmallow and some milk, and this one has a Christmas tree. So what do you think? Even though there are a lot of steps involved in this project, I think it was totally worth it. I love how these turned out. They are so cute. And I think they'd make a great addition for your Christmas decorating. Super easy to make. Most of the things came from Dollar Tree, and I think they look fabulous. I found these at Dollar Tree and they are so cool. They're like cutout wood pieces. And I found 2 different packages and they had these really pretty pine trees. And I was trying to figure out something that I could make using just the pine trees. And I really like this wooden ring. I thought it would be really fun to do like a 3D thing with these wooden pine trees. Now that etch that's on the bottom, that is supposed to be used for the original craft. But since I'm not using the trees as they are intended, I wanted to remove those little extra wooden pieces because I don't want them to be on my finished project. And once I had that wood removed, then I just took sage green acrylic paint and I painted the pine trees with the sage green paint. Now you could do any color you wanted to, but I really like this color green. It's kind of a softer green and it may not be traditional, but I really like the look that this gives. So each of the tree sections got a coat of the sage green acrylic paint. Next, I came in with a brown acrylic paint because I just want to paint the trunks of the trees. It doesn't matter if it's perfect, just having this color, and I believe this is burnt sienna, on each of the trunks of the trees definitely gives a little bit of a pop of color to the piece. I love finding these wood kits at Dollar Tree. If you're lucky enough to have a laser cutter, you can probably make these really easily. Finding pieces like this at the Dollar Tree is really fun to make some original decor and craft pieces for your home, especially at this time of the year. Then I came back with a little bit of a tan paint, and then I just brushed it a little bit with a fan brush. Then I used some Dollar Tree puffy paint to make the bottom of these trees have snow. It looks like big piles of snow at the base of the trees. Then I wanted to add a little bit of something extra like I do. So I used a little bit of burnt umber paint and some water, and using a couple of fan brushes, I just kind of splattered the paint onto the trees. I also came back with a little bit of a cream colored acrylic paint and did the same thing. Now, Dollar Tree is wonderful for finding signs like these, and these were from the fall season, but what I did was remove the hangers on the back, and then using a little sander, I removed all of the glitter that was on the front. So where it said blessed, I removed all of that glitter because I don't want that to show up in my project. And once I had the paint and the glitter removed from the front of my signs, then I came back with some tan acrylic paint. This is a folk art matte finish. I wanted to add a little more texture to the sign, so I came back with different shades of brown. This is kind of a golden brown. I just lightly brushed that across the signs. So I started with one shade of the golden brown, then I came back with some burnt umber, and I was trying to make a plaid pattern, and the 1.5 inch chip brush worked really well for this. And once my pine trees were dry, then I came back with some tumbling tower blocks, and I secured 2 blocks to each of the backs of the pine trees. Then I used a little bit more of the Dollar Tree wood glue, and I placed the trees onto my sign. And I just repeated the process with the other set of pine trees. Talk about instant decor. This was so easy to do, and I really don't think there is a lot of skill required to make something like this. There's so many different things that you could do, but for this time of the year, I really like the pine trees, and I think this is something that I can keep in my decorating well past Christmas and into the new year. I have this Dollar Tree glass vase. I love these vases. There's so many things that you can do with them. The hardest thing of using these glasses is getting that tag off of the bottom. But once you get the tag off of the bottom, you can do a lot. And I have this folk art gold paint. This is such a pretty color. It's called Mayan Gold, and I used that on the inside of the vase. So the reason I did it on the inside and not the outside of the vase is because that glass is going to give it a really glossy finish, and I don't have to add a coat of spray paint or anything to the outside of the vase. Isn't that pretty? Look at how shiny that is. I think that is so pretty. So I want to make a little Christmas vase. I took a small piece of floral foam and secured it into the bottom of my vase. Next, I had a bunch of plastic ornaments, and I took the hangers off, and then using some bamboo skewers from the Dollar Tree, I secured the skewer to each of the ornaments. And then I just stuck the skewers down into the floral foam. Now, I think you can see all of the little holes that have been poked into the foam already. That's because it didn't seem to work out really well the first time with this project, but that's what's nice about things like this is you can do it over and over again until you get the look that you're going for. And this is a really good way to use the leftover Christmas decorations that you have to make some extra decorations for your decorating. That's what I did with this project, and it turned out so well. That was why I wanted to share it with you. This is a really fast and easy project that you can make in just a few hours, and I think it is so pretty, and I'm so glad I took the time to make it. I wanted to make some Christmas trees, but I didn't have any wood cutouts or wood that I could cut out to make Christmas trees. So I used the next best thing, which I'm sure everyone has a lot of right now, and that's cardboard. Yes, cardboard makes really good patterns for projects like this. And I like cardboard because it's very easy to obtain and it's actually really fun to work with. And there really is not a lot of skill involved in cutting out a triangle. So after I had the first triangle cut out, then I just used a pen and cut out some more triangles. Then I came back the opposite direction and I had some smaller triangles. And using some of the yarn from my craft room, I covered all of the cardboard triangles with the yarn. I want this to be more of a rustic type of decor piece because I have a lot of this rustic colored yarn. So lots of tans and lots of whites, and some of them did come from the Dollar Tree. And once I had all of the Christmas trees covered in yarn, then for a couple of the smaller white ones, I did come back with some jute twine and wrap that around the smaller trees just to give it a little bit of decoration. And all I had to do was secure the yarn down with some hot glue. Now I have this sign that I got from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to paint this white, but I only want to have to do one coat of paint. So I added in a little bit of plaster of Paris because that's going to give some texture to the paint and it will make it thicker. So I will only have to do one coat of paint on this sign, which is pretty impressive because it's white paint and I'm painting over some darker lettering that's on the sign. This is definitely one way that you can make the painting go faster. And while the paint was still wet, I came back with some iridescent glitter and I just poured that over top of the sign. Now I had this Dollar Tree, I guess it's a charger that I had painted some time ago because I want to make my Christmas trees have like a base. So I put the white sign on top of the charger and then I started securing my Christmas trees to the white part. I started with two of the larger triangles or Christmas trees that were covered in white yarn. And I did use a little bit of hot glue on both sides to really make sure that it's going to be sturdy and these trees are going to stay in place. Next, I came back with another of the larger trees and I secured that to the front of the sign. Then I came back with my two smaller white Christmas trees that I put the jute twine on. And using the hot glue, I secured those to either side of the brown Christmas tree. I wanted to add a little bit of lights for the holidays. So I had this LED light strand, like fairy lights from the Dollar Tree. It only took 2 AA batteries, and then I just strung the lights around my Christmas trees. And I was careful to make it so that the battery pack will be in the back of the display. Isn't that cute? I did go ahead and add another strand of the fairy lights to my Christmas tree display, and I really like how this turned out. I wasn't too sure about using the cardboard as the base, but cardboard is wonderful for crafts, and I can't wait to show you what else I've come up with using cardboard as the base for a craft. But for now, I am so happy with my Christmas tree display, and I really like how it looks in my decor. Now you can sometimes find painter sticks at Dollar Tree, but I was able to find these at Home Depot, and they were really affordable, cheaper than Dollar Tree at 96 cents for 12 of them. So I took 3 of the larger painter sticks, and then using some smaller craft sticks from the Dollar Tree, I used wood glue to secure the 3 painters sticks together with the craft sticks. And next I came back with some velvet yarn, and believe it or not, this did come from the Dollar Tree. And I wrapped the yarn all the way around the painter sticks. So the yarn is going to give a red velvet base, which is exactly what I wanted. I just covered the entire piece of wood with the velvet yarn. And Dollar Tree has these really nice metal signs just in time for Christmas. They have Christmas words like peace, joy, and believe. And the believe is what I want to use. So I took some more white acrylic paint that had a little bit of plaster of Paris still, and I just mixed it together. And then I painted the believe with my paint mixture. The plaster of Paris really gives a nice texture to the sign, and it sticks well to the metal. Then I came back with some Dollar Tree wood glue, and I secured the believe to the front of my sign. And I did want to add a bow, but I didn't have a small red bow, so I made one out of some velvet ribbon that I already had. I added dovetails to the bottom. And I secured my bow to the lower corner of my sign and added in a Dollar Tree jingle bell. And this is such a fun project. This was so easy. I cannot believe how easy all of these projects were, but I really like this believe sign. I think it looks great. My Santa in my living room. And hopefully I've inspired you to do something like this, because I'm telling you, it is so easy, but so pretty. Now, every once in a while, you can find larger signs like this at the Dollar Tree. And when I find them, I snatch them up. And usually they have a sawtooth hanger on the back, which I'm not going to be using for this project. So I did go ahead and remove the hanger. Now, the one thing that this sign had was these raised flowers. So I went ahead and removed the raised flowers. Thankfully, they were very easy to remove. Then I used some Dixie Belle chalk paint, and I painted the entire piece with the white chalk paint. It's not quite white. I believe this is in the color of fluff, so it does have a tiny bit of cream color to it. And I used a chip brush because that helps to give this a look that I'm going for, which is number one, some texture. And I'm going to try and see if I can make this look like birch wood. So I did a pretty heavy coat of the Dixie Belle paint. Then I came back with some black acrylic paint and a very small 1-inch chip brush. And I'm trying to remember what a birch tree looks like. I know it has some black lines, like longer lines to it. And I find that by doing this while the paint is wet, it's easier to blend the two different colors together. I did come back with a little bit more of the Dixie Belle paint because I want this to, like I said, blend together. And that is, to me, really starting to look like a birch tree pattern. But then I came back again with a little bit more of that black acrylic paint to put some more texture and different designs onto the sign. And like with any project that you're doing, if you're going to try to do something like this, don't be too hard on yourself. Sometimes it's fun just to play around and see what you come up with. No two designs are going to be identical, and getting a little bit creative and stepping out of your comfort zone can be really fun. That's how I come up with some of the best projects that I've made. Now, once my paint was dry, I did come back with some of the Tim Holtz Distressing ink to darken things up just a little bit on the sign. And not only did I do the top, but I did continue that all the way around all four sides. Next, I had some of this fabric. What is this? Homespun fabric. And I'm going to turn this sign into a Christmas present. So I want this to have more of a rustic or primitive appearance. So using the homespun fabric, I'm going to make a ribbon for my present that's going to hang on the wall. And instead of cutting the strips of material, I just ripped them. That gives a really nice rustic edge to the fabric. And then I just secured one strip of the fabric right down the center. And then I flipped over the sign and secured the ribbon to the interior portion on the back of the sign. And then I added another piece of that fabric so that it looks like it's a ribbon going around a package. And I just repeated the process of where I secured the ribbon. Next, I came back with a thicker jute twine, and I basically repeated the process of making it look like a ribbon on top of a ribbon. And then I repeated the same process again with a smaller jute twine right next to the larger twine. And here's where it gets really fun. So I had some of the faux evergreen or pine pieces, and I hot glued those to the ribbon. And then I wanted to have a homespun or more of a primitive or country bow. So I just made loops with the fabric, and then I secured those loops to the center of the ribbon to make it look like a bow. And to give it a little extra dimension, I had some cream colored burlap fabric that, believe it or not, I got at the Dollar Tree, and I just cut pieces of that off and hot glued those pieces in between the loops of my bow. And then I had some little paper doilies. I believe I got those at Temu, and I just kept adding extra embellishments to really make this look like a very fluffy bow. And I even came back and added a few more of the homespun fabric loops in to make it even fuller. And then I used a very rustic looking jingle bell. And then I tore a piece of paper and crinkled it up a bit, and I had this Merry Christmas tag, so I did a little bit of distressing of it around the edges, and then I secured that to the torn, tattered paper that I put underneath the jingle bell. I used a few buttons to make it look like it's holding the Merry Christmas sign in place, and then I used a little heart right down in the corner of my package. I wanted it to have a little bit more greenery, so I came back with a few more faux pine pieces and added those in along with some other greenery stems. And that is pretty much it. I think this turned out so cute. And like every other project that I've shared with you in this video, this was very easy. No skill really was needed. Even the painting, it wasn't that difficult to do. You just have to have a little faith in yourself that you can do this. And I know you can, because if I can do this, I know you can too. Now, I had already made this from some Dollar Tree supplies for another project that I just didn't use, and I thought it would be perfect for this floral arrangement. So I cut some pieces of floral foam and secured that to the inside of the tray. Then I had this pine evergreen, I guess this is like a garland, so I just cut off pieces of it and glued it to the floral foam. I worked my way all the way around until you couldn't see the inside of the bowl anymore. And I also had these left over from another project. These are just some different pine pieces. So I secured those in between the original evergreen branches that I had. Then I found these beautiful amaryllis silk flowers on Amazon, and there are actually 4 flowers all gathered up together. And I decided it would be better to use these individually, and then I could just secure them in with some hot glue. This will really give me a much bigger bang for my buck. And this is the end result. I am so happy with how this turned out. I was able to make this piece for about $25, which is a lot more affordable when I compare it to the Pottery Barn version, which was $170. It's so beautiful, and I am so glad I did this. Now, I love these gold candlesticks from Pottery Barn, but I had a bunch of black candle holders from the Dollar Tree and a couple that I found at thrift stores, and I had a lot of extra metallic goldish paints. So I just spray painted all of the candle holders. And by using the leftover spray paint that I had, this was a very affordable project. And I really like the color that I got from combining the 3 different spray paints. I used my new candle holders to create a centerpiece for my dining room table. I also used the extras that I had from other projects of the greenery and then just found some pine cones. And I was able to make all of these candlesticks for around $10. So excited when I went to Target and I found this acrylic snowman. Oh my gosh, this is so perfect for my terracotta snowman. So I used the hot glue gun to punch out through that acrylic plastic to mark where the snowman's eyes are going to be. As well as his mouth and even the buttons down the front. This part does take a little bit of time. You have to be patient if you're going to be doing this, but it will be worth it. Once I was done with that part, I came back with some acrylic paint and I added in some baking soda. The baking soda is awesome for helping the paint stick to plastic like this. And I think you can see I also cut a cardboard circle and secured that to the top of the snowman's hat. Now, I I'm using a Dremel, and I don't know, I think this is used to cut metal, but this was the best thing that I could find to get the bottom out of the acrylic snowman. If you're going to be doing this, be sure to wear safety glasses and be very careful when you're doing this so you don't have that plastic flying towards your face. And I just did little bits at a time, and I had the Dremel set at a speed of about 6. I didn't want to go too fast, and the Dremel was good because it helped me to keep control of what I was doing when I punched out that acrylic bottom. So now I can put a candle into my snowman. I had some air dry clay, and I basically made a donut, and I secured that to the snowman. Then I also used the same air dry clay to give him a nose. And I lightened up the snowman using some acrylic paint that I again had added baking soda to. And to give it that terracotta look like the Pottery Barn snowman, I did fleck on a little bit of burnt umber paint, and look at the snowman. Oh my goodness, this turned out so good. I'm so happy with this snowman. I think it looks adorable, and I liked it so much I had to make another one. These snowmen cost me about $5 a piece to make, which is a lot more affordable than the Pottery Barn version at $149 for one snowman. No, this doesn't look exactly like the Pottery Barn terracotta snowman, but I think it looks great, and I am so happy that I did it. This is a fence picket that I've had for a while, and I knew I could use it for a project. So what I want to do is turn this into a snowman. So I had a couple of paint stir sticks that I cut down. This is going to be the brim of the hat for the snowman, and I took 2 of them and glued them together, and then used some Dollar Tree clamps to secure both of those pieces of wood in place while the glue was drying. Then I came back with the Dixie Belle chalk paint, and I painted the bottom half of the wooden picket with the white chalk paint, which again is the color cotton. I made sure to paint the sides as well as the bottom. And once that had dried, I came back with some black acrylic paint. I didn't have any chalk paint, so I just used black acrylic paint, and I painted the remaining portion of the picket with the black paint. It's not going to matter if it's exactly perfect from where the black and the white meet up, because that's where the brim is going to go. And remember, the brim is the 2 pieces of the paint stir stick that I had glued together. Now, once all of the paint had dried, I came back with my mini hand sander, and I just sanded away some of the paint. I didn't want it to have a freshly painted look, so by using the sander, that's going to remove some of the paint and give the project a more rustic appearance. So I did that on the brim as well as the black portion of the picket. And you can remove as little or as much of the paint as you like. Now, one thing, if you are going to be doing this project, I would switch out the sandpaper when you go from the black to the white. Otherwise, the black is going to drag into the white. So I'm really just focusing on the white area of the picket now. And again, just removing some of that paint because I want it to look old and kind of worn and rustic. Then I took some Dollar Tree wood glue and I secured the brim in place of the hat. Then I came back with some different pine pieces, and I'm going to put that on one side of the hat. I also find if I use individual pieces, like little individual stems, it looks a lot more cohesive and the project looks a lot more intentional. So that would be my advice for this project. To get this look, you've just got to use smaller pieces and glue them in place individually. So now I want to make a bow. So I'm going to take a bunch of different fabric scraps and I'm going to cut smaller pieces off, and then I'm going to stack them up on top of each other. And if you want to get a more rustic or country or farmhouse type look for your bows, and this is just a rustic bow, I find that it works really well just to tear the pieces of fabric. and not have the straight crisp line from a scissors. And while I was stacking the different fabrics on top of each other, you can see I have a zip tie underneath. I got a package of zip ties at Dollar Tree, and these are wonderful if you're making bows like this. So I'm just alternating the fabric, and then once I have enough of the fabric, I'm going to just tighten up that zip tie. And then I just cut away the excess, put a little bit of hot glue around the zip tie itself, and then I'm going to secure another piece of fabric over top. That way the zip tie is covered and it just looks like a messy bow. And there really isn't a right or a wrong way how to do this. You can do whatever you want. I like to mix and match my colors, so that's why I keep all of my fabric scraps, because I know I can use them for an upcoming project. So then I needed to make a nose for my snowman. So then I created some noses in Creative Space. Now that's the software program for Xtool. And this is the Xtool M1 Ultra 4-in-1 crafting machine. And this is what I was able to cut out. It took maybe about 6 minutes to cut out all of these pieces. So I know I'm going to be doing more snowman crafts, so I made a few different snowman noses. And then I came back inside and tested out the different noses that I had made for my snowman on the snowman itself. I have lots of different sizes, so I'm so excited to use these snowman noses in upcoming projects. But I really like that one. I think that's probably the nose that I'm going to use. That one's a little too large. I think the smaller one is the size that's going to work best for this snowman. Since I'm going to be painting the wood, I'm going to use some painter's tape and I'm going to secure the nose in place. But I'm also going to be painting the eyes as well as the mouth of the snowman using some half round wooden beads. And I don't have a lot of sizes of these beads, so I think the smaller ones are going to work better for both the mouth as well as the eyes for the snowman. So once I practiced and saw what the face is going to look like, then I painted the individual wooden pieces. And when I'm painting, I like to blend my colors, so I took 2 different shades of orange paint to paint the nose. And then for the eyes and the mouth, I'm just going to use black acrylic paint. So I started with the darker orange first for my carrot nose and gave it 1 coat of the paint. Then I came back with a fan brush in the lighter orange and just dragged that down from one side of the wood to the other. And while that was drying, I worked on the beads with the black paint. And once these wood pieces were dried, then I arranged them in place on the snowman. And again, I used the B7000 adhesive to secure everything in place. But this is why I like to put the pieces in place first before I secure them with glue, because I may change my mind of where I want each piece to go. So by having them in place, I can kind of play around a little bit with the pieces as I'm securing them in place. And once I was done with the snowman's face, then I came back and secured the bow in place on his hat. So I used a little bit of hot glue on the brim of the hat, and I put a little bit on the back of the bow as well. And I tried to make sure that all of those pieces of fabric are facing upright when I secured it to the hat. Then I couldn't decide which snowflakes I wanted to use on the snowman's hat. I know I wanted to use one on the bow as well as the hat itself, but I had made those wooden snowflakes and I liked those, but I also really liked the rusty metal too. And in the end, the rusty metal stars won. So I glued a star to the top of the hat as well as to the center of my bow. And I wanted to add something just a little bit extra to the bow. So I had this bag of decorative shreds. It's pretty much just shredded up and crimped like paper bag material, but I thought that would look nice kind of tucked in and coming in and out around the bow. And I did get that at Dollar Tree. And I don't know if you've ever thought of using something like those decorative shreds for anything other than packaging, but that's what's fun about crafting is you get to look at things in different ways. So just because something has one purpose or one original use in mind doesn't necessarily mean you need to use it that way. And I thought my snowman could use a little bit of snow on his hat and his nose. So I came back with some Fast and Final spackling and I put a little bit of that onto the nose of the snowman as well as the brim and the top of his hat. It was a little bit challenging to get that spackling to stay in place, so I did come back with some white puffy paint and I added that on top of the spackling. I also came back with some white paint and added catch lights to his eyes. So this is what the snowman looks like in my craft room right after I had finished crafting it. You can see a little bit of that puffy paint on top of the spackling. I like that because it gives a different layer of dimension or texture to the project. This snowman is so adorable. This was such a fun project. I love how the snowman turned out. And I really didn't have to spend any money to create this. I made the snowman using things that I already had. Now, like I said in the beginning, I've got a lot of scrap wood, so I took this piece of wood and I cut it into almost like a half circle. I want to make a beanie with this. Have you seen these beanies? They are so cute and they're actually very easy to make. So first I took this larger piece of scrap wood, sanded it down so everything is nice and smooth, and then I picked out a paint. And I really like this navy blue paint. It's so pretty, and I think it'll work well in my decorating for fall as well as the winter time. So I just painted the entire piece of wood with the navy blue paint. Then I came back on the opposite side and painted it white. Now what I'm going to do is do a decoupaging technique for this project. So I took some Mod Podge and I painted a coat of it onto the part of my wood that's going to be the front. And once it was dry, this is what it looks like. Just a scrap piece of wood, blue on the back, white on the front. And I had these Mackenzie Childs napkins. These are super cute and I believe they're actually on clearance on their website right now. What I want to do is decoupage with this because I love this checkerboard pattern. I think it's so pretty. So I wanted to see if I could use this napkin for a DIY. So what I did was separate the different layers of the napkin. I removed the white layer, which is 1 ply of the napkin. And if you're doing this, you just want to be really careful so you don't rip the top layer. Next, I took the top layer and I positioned it onto my piece of wood. I moved it around until I was happy with the placement of what the checkerboard is going to look like on my finished project. Next, I covered the napkin with a Teflon sheet, and then I used my tiny mini heat press and I pressed it. This is a really easy way to do decoupage without getting any wrinkles. That's why I really like to do it this way. You can just put a heat press over top of whatever it is that you're securing, and the heat from the iron will reactivate the Mod Podge and make it so that whatever you're attaching will stick in place. And I really wanted to make sure this was adhered well, so I did go over it for a couple of minutes. And now the napkin is secured to my piece of wood, so I'm just going to come in and trim away the excess of the napkin. And I'm going to let that cool down before moving on to the next step with the beanie. And I'm going to come back with my pom-pom maker and I'm going to make a pom-pom. And the reason I'm doing that is because the pom-pom is going to go on the top center of my beanie. And I've had this pom-pom maker for a while now. You can find the Clover pom-pom makers online. I'll leave a link in the description box. But lately on my trips to Dollar Tree, I've been seeing the pom-pom maker. So you can get a set of 3 of them for either $1.25 or $1.50, depending on what the price point is at your Dollar Tree. But before you go and buy one online, I would suggest checking out Dollar Tree and seeing if they have them in stock. You can also make pom-poms by using a piece of cardboard, but if you can find these, this makes it a lot faster and you get a really nice pom-pom. So all you have to do is wrap the yarn around the two separate arms. So this is wrapping the yarn around one side, and I'm just moving back and forth from side to side across the half circle. I want to get this nice and full because that's going to give me a really full pom-pom. And once I have it full of yarn, then I just close it and move on to the other side. Now the other side is complete, and now I have the yarn on the pom-pom maker, so now I can move to the next step. It has this channel down the center, and you just take a tiny pair of scissors. These are embroidery scissors, and they work really well for getting into that little channel so that you can cut the yarn. So I'm just going to cut the yarn down one side, and then I'm going to flip the pom-pom maker over, and I'm going to cut the yarn on the other side. Then I'm going to take another piece of yarn and I'm going to put it into that channel on the bottom and pull it up to the top. And then I'm going to tie a knot into the yarn and just pull it down so that it's secure. So it's basically a square knot that I'm tying. Then I'm going to flip the pom-pom maker over, and I'm going to do the same steps of tying the square knot on the opposite side. I try to pull the yarn as tight as I can because I really want to make sure that it's pulled tightly on all of those individual pieces of yarn. Then I open up the arms of the pom-pom maker and pull it apart. And there is my pom-pom. So now I'm just going to take some scissors and trim away any of the excess yarn that's a little bit longer. Now I'm using a Dollar Tree plastic container because it holds all of that excess yarn in one spot so that I can throw it away, and it keeps the mess more contained. And I'm also going to cut away the long pieces of yarn so it's just the pom-pom left now. Look at how pretty that is. So now once I have my pom-pom finished, I can come back to my piece of wood. So I'm going to take my micro hand sander or mini hand sander, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to sand away the excess napkin that's around the edges of my beanie. I find it much easier to use than scissors. Now here's something in retrospect I don't know if I should have done. I came back with some more Mod Podge to seal the napkin down, but when I was doing this layer of the napkin was kind of lifting away, which is why I believe these napkins were actually a 3-ply. So I very carefully just put some more Mod Podge on. I don't know that I would do this again in the future, just because that will lift the printed part of the napkin away from my project. Now I've had this yarn for a while. I believe I got it at Goodwill and it was like $2. So that was a really good deal. And I like the different colors, the blues and the creams and the whites. I thought it would be a nice accent for this piece. So I just took the yarn and I secured it with some hot glue down at the bottom edge of my beanie. And I did this one strand of yarn at a time. I didn't wrap it completely around because I wanted to make sure that it was uniform and straight. So I just worked my way up from the bottom until I got the bottom edge of the beanie where I thought it would look nice. So I just cut off the individual pieces of the yarn as I worked my way up. And then I used my hot glue gun to secure the yarn to the sides as well as the back of the beanie. And I like the way that yarn looks so much on the bottom part of the beanie that I decided to make a new pom-pom with that yarn. I thought it would look better if the pom-pom on the top matches the yarn on the bottom. Now, while I'm showing you again the process of how I make a pom-pom, I just wanted to give a shout out to Heidi Sonbold DIY. I don't know if you've seen any of her videos, but right now she's doing something pretty spectacular. She's doing a Crafttober. And what that means is she's posting a new video Monday through Saturday every day for the entire month of October. So 6 new videos a week is what she's doing. And if you've never crafted and then made videos from the projects that you're crafting, the amount of work and dedication that it takes to be able to do that. So my hat is off to Heidi for this. This is a huge project that she's undertaken, and all of the projects that she has shared so far have just been so beautiful. In her video from October 6th, the second project in that video, that has been my favorite so far, and I can't wait to make it. And if you haven't checked out Heidi's channel, I'm going to leave a link down in the description box below. Please go show Heidi our support and give her a big thumbs up, subscribe to her channel, and just take a look at some of the amazing crafts that she's making. She is truly an inspiration. All right, so now I've got my pom-pom all ready for my beanie. So I'm just gonna put some hot glue along the top, and then I'm going to smush that pom-pom down on top of my beanie. That is just so cute. But I wanted to add a little bit of something extra, so I had these wooden hearts that I had cut out with my laser machine. I painted it red, and that is the end result. This is what I've been wanting to make for so long. I love these beanies. I think they are so cute. And there's so many different things that you can do, so many different ways that you can make these beanies and incorporate them into your own decorating. Let me show you a different way to make one of these wooden beanies. So I made this smaller beanie with just some pine wood. Again, it's scrap wood, and I'm going to paint it red. I wanted it to be more of a Christmas red, and this red paint, it wasn't quite what I was looking for, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start this project with this acrylic paint, and then I will find the red that I want it to be after this paint is dry. Next, I came back with a stencil, and this stencil has kind of a knit pattern on it. So I took some Gorilla Glue adhesive. This is just a really nice thing to use with stencils like this. I put the spray adhesive onto the back of the stencil, and then I secured it to my beanie. I did use a silicone craft stick to make sure the stencil was adhered to the wood. Then I came back with some white stamping ink because that's what I had, and I stamped that over top of the stencil. It worked really well with just an up and down motion and not moving side to side. When I was done, I just removed the stencil, and now I have this knit pattern. These stencils are so much fun for projects like this, but in order to keep it in good condition, I like to clean it off when I'm done using it. So I just have these Dude baby wipes, and I just wiped away the excess adhesive as well as the stamping ink. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it helps to get most of that stuff off while it's still fresh. I'm going to do the same thing on this tinier beanie. I'm going to take some yarn, and this is actually Dollar Tree yarn, and I'm going to put that across the bottom. This yarn is a little bit thinner than the other yarn that I was using, so I'm actually doubling it up as I put it around the bottom of the beanie. This is kind of a cranberry color of yarn, I think, and I usually do see it at the Dollar Tree, and they have so many different yarns there that I do buy them from time to time just because they're so pretty and fun to work with. Now, once I had the yarn in place on the bottom of the beanie, I did the same thing that I did with the larger one. I used my hot glue gun and I secured the yarn to the sides and to the back. But because this yarn is so thin and this piece of wood is smaller than the larger one I was working with, I did decide to go ahead and wrap a little bit extra yarn around the bottom. I want it to stand out just a little bit so that it looks like the edge of a stocking cap. And then I just used some hot glue to secure it to the back. Now I've already shown you a couple of times of how I make a pom-pom, so I'm not going to make you watch it again, but I made a pom-pom in that same color of yarn. This is a little bit smaller pom-pom, and I secured it to the top of the beanie. I had already painted a bunch of these wooden hearts, but I decided I wanted a green heart to go with this hat because it looks more like Christmas. So I came back with some green acrylic paint, and I also came back with a little bit of a cream color just to add a little bit of something different to the heart. And the light green background that I have that's underneath the heart shapes, that's just a piece of painter's tape that I made like a circle and stuck it to my silicone mat. That way I don't get my fingers full of paint when I'm painting really small pieces like this. And I really like to use B7000 for my adhesive, so I put a little bit of that onto the back of the heart and then I attached it to my beanie. And that is how this project turned out. I love this. I love that knit pattern. I think it looks so pretty. And I always find these beanies on Etsy, and I wanted to see if I could make one myself. And yes, obviously I can, which means you can too, because now I've shown you how you can do it. Now I've got one more beanie that I want to share with you. Now this one is really easy because I actually bought this beanie cutout, and I will leave a link to the place of where I got it. So I'm going to decoupage some scrapbooking paper onto this beanie. This is a lot easier than the napkin. So once the Mod Podge was dry, I put the scrapbooking paper on the piece of wood and then a Teflon sheet on top of that. And I used my mini heat press to secure the paper to the wood. And I had this green yarn, and this was actually really fun to work with because I could pull it apart and it kind of unwound and it became a lot more yarn. So I just unwound a bunch of it so that I could use that for my mini hat. And it seemed like the smaller the beanies got, it was easier to control the yarn. So for this project, I just wrapped the yarn around the bottom edge of the beanie. And then I just used some hot glue to secure it to the back. Now, since this beanie is the smallest of everything I've used so far, so I'm going to use a smaller pom-pom maker. So I decided to use some of that green yarn, but I'm also going to throw in some of this other yarn. This is more of a natural color, but it's kind of fluffy. It's also very fine. So once I started wrapping the green yarn around the pom-pom maker arm, then I did a little bit of the brown yarn. And I just alternated back and forth until I had each of the arms full of the yarn. And then I cut away a lot of the yarn just to have a very small pom-pom. Now, since I've wrapped the yarn around the bottom portion of this piece of wood, I did bundle up some of that green yarn and I secured that to the back portion of the beanie as well, because it's going to lift it up equally on the backing that I'm going to be putting it on. Then I used a little bit more hot glue and I secured the beanie to the piece of wood. I really like how that green goes with that stain color on the wood. And then I just used a little bit more hot glue to secure the pom-pom to the top of the beanie. And the pom-pom is going to be raised up a little bit, so it's not going to sit flush on top of the hat. It's actually going to be up a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit taller than the backing. And because this is more of a neutral color palette, I took one of the wooden hearts that had not been painted. It was just natural, and I secured it in place on the hat. Look at how cute that is. I know, I always say that with all of these projects, but I'm just so happy and so excited when they turn out. No, they don't always turn out, but I think these look great, and I had so much fun making them. I'm using a Dollar Tree charger, and I'm actually going to be using the bottom side and also an empty coffee can. I have this B7000 glue. It's kind of like E6000, so I put that around the top edge of the coffee can and then used a little bit of hot glue to get the instant stick that I wanted. Then I took the coffee can, tipped it upside down, and put it in the center of the charger plate. I also added a little bit of hot glue all the way around the edge of the coffee can because I don't want to have a seam. It's not going to show in the end project, but just in case, I did secure all the way around the edge of the coffee can with some hot glue. Once that was completely dry, this is what it looks like. Then I came back with some black acrylic paint and I painted the entire piece with the black acrylic paint. I'm pretty sure you know what this is going to be, but just in case, I'm making a giant snowman hat. So I painted the entire hat with one coat of the acrylic paint. It does take a couple of coats of paint, but just one coat for the beginning is fine. Now, once that was dry, I did come back with a second coat of acrylic paint. I did do a little bit thicker paint on this coat because I'm going to come back with this glitter that I got at the Dollar Tree. I cannot believe I got this at the Dollar Tree. And while that acrylic paint was wet, I put that black glitter all over the hat. Look at how shiny that is. It definitely gives a Frosty the Snowman look, I think. So just putting all of that glitter all over the hat and making sure it was completely coated. This is why it's important for the acrylic paint to still be wet because the glitter will stick. Then I came back with some Dollar Tree ribbon. I don't know what kind of ribbon this is, but they have it every year. It wouldn't be my first choice for a lot of projects, but for this Frosty the Snowman hat, it works wonderful. I secured the ribbon to the bottom part of the top hat. And then I came back with some little pine pieces and I tested out to see what it would look like with the pine greenery. Once I was happy with how that was going to look, then I secured them in place with the hot glue. Sometimes I like to test out first what it's going to look like before I commit to really securing a piece in place on the project. Then I took some red berries and I secured those to the bottom edge of the pine pieces. And I thought the jingle bell would look nice too, so I put a little rusty jingle bell. And then I had this, I don't even know what it is. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby, but I just cut pieces off of it and then attached it in underneath the pine greenery so it'd be sticking out around. And that is my Frosty the Snowman hat. This was such an easy project. Anybody could do this, and it cost me less than, what, $4 to make this really awesome decoration for my decor. If you're looking for an easy project to elevate your decor, you've got to try this. Now for this project, I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree floral foam and this basket that I got for $1.99 at Goodwill. It's a pretty basket and it was a good price. First, I'll remove all of that plastic outer wrapping on the floral foam, and then I'm going to attach this piece right into the center. Next, I cut down some other floral foam and I secured it to either side of the original piece of foam with some hot glue. Then I took one of these Dollar Tree ornaments. It's like a house and it's got some embellishments, just the wreath. And I removed all of the embellishments and then I used nutmeg brown paint and painted the entire house. I tried to make sure to get the inside as well. Then I took a bunch of extra greenery picks and different pieces of pine, and I pushed that down into the foam. The back of the basket isn't going to be showing, so I'm really focusing on the front part of this basket. Then I took some of these Dollar Tree bottle brush trees. You get 3 for $1.25, and I removed the base. If you simply twist the bottom, the base will come off very easily. Then I tucked those into my basket as well. One was kind of in the center, and I pushed one off to the side, so I did have to use a smaller piece of the floral foam to have it stay in place. And once my little house ornament was dry, I came back and coated the roof of the house with some chalk paint. I also brushed some of that white chalk paint onto the front of the house as well. That's an easy way to get a gingerbread house look without having to do a lot of work. Then I took another piece of the floral foam and secured it to the bottom of the house. And then tucked it into the basket. And I wanted my pine to look like it had snow on it, so I used a little bit of the folk art chalk paint and just lightly brushed that onto all of the greenery pieces. It does definitely give it more of a flocked appearance. Next, I took some red berries and I just tucked those in between the pine pieces. And there is my adorable little display. I really do like this, but I did want to add a little bit of extra, so I hot glued in some pine cones, and then I took some little fairy twinkle lights from the Dollar Tree, and I just mingled those in between all of the berries and the pine pieces. And while I was putting in all of those lights, I thought it would look nice to light up the house, so I made sure to put a light in the house as well. And this is the end result. I think it is adorable. It is so pretty, and it was very affordable to make, and it was actually really easy. So what I'm going to do is take some of these tumbling tower blocks, and I'm going to make little Christmas trees. Now, I've seen people do this with large pieces of wood, but I wanted to see if I could do it with the tumbling tower blocks. So for this tree, I just took 3 tumbling tower blocks and glued them probably about 1/3 of the way down, and then I secured them to each other. So 3 blocks on each side will make the top of the tree. And then I took 2 blocks and glued them for the base of the tree. And I repeated this process with lots of other tumbling tower blocks, so I would have lots of trees. Next, I took this acrylic paint. This is Anita's acrylic paint, and I think it's avocado. I'm not really sure. And I painted the entire tree. I did the base, the top, the insides, the outside. All of the tumbling tower blocks got a complete coat of this acrylic paint. And once the first coat of paint was dry, I did come back and paint everything again. So all of my Christmas trees got 2 coats of paint. Next, I came back with some more pine pieces. And again, these are from Dollar Tree. And I just separated them into tiny pieces. And I just added a few of those branches to one side of the Christmas tree. I also added some wooden stars to the tops of the trees just to make it really look like Christmas. Then I took some rusty stars and I put those right into the center of the pine branches. And once again, we have a very easy craft, but I think it looks really great. And I don't think my Christmas trees look like they came from the Dollar Tree. Do you? Now, have you seen these little houses at the Dollar Tree? They are so cute for Christmas villages. They're $1.25 a piece, but I want to try something a little bit different with them. So I wanted to see if I could take the bases off of the houses and I couldn't. They were so hard to get apart. And on one house, I was able to get the base off a little bit, but then I did have to come back with some nippers and remove the base of the houses. This was hard for me to do because I just felt like I was destroying something. But once I had the bases off, then I came back with some nutmeg acrylic paint and I painted each of the houses with a thick coat of the nutmeg paint. And once the paint had dried, then I came back with some white chalk paint and I painted the roofs. And once the roof was completely painted, then I took some iridescent glitter and I just sprinkled that over the roof and then shook off the excess. Then I came back with a 2-inch chip brush and I lightly brushed some of that white chalk paint onto the house. So I want to make this look like a gingerbread house, but I don't want to have to paint all of the little raised edges. But I found that by using this dry brushing technique, it really made the houses look like they were gingerbread. Now I'm trying to duplicate something that I saw on Pottery Barn. It's a little Christmas village with some bottle brush trees, and I thought these houses would be perfect for it. So I just carefully went around each side of the house and used just a little bit of the white chalk paint and lightly brushed it across the house. Once I had all 4 sides painted, then I did come back and add a little bit more because I did want this to look a little bit lighter. And I really love how much texture there is on these houses. It really picks up the paint very well, and it almost looks as if it is really made of gingerbread. Now at my Dollar Tree, they have 2 types of trays. They have a glittery tray and then the tray that I've seen lots and lots of times. But for this project, I decided to use the glittery tray. I really think this is going to work well for this project. So if you see these at your Dollar Tree, I would highly recommend you get this type of tray. So I took that white chalk paint and I painted the entire tray. Then I came back with that iridescent glitter and I just kind of poured some of that onto the tray as well. I repeated this process until the entire tray was white and glittery. Once that had dried, all I had to do was secure the houses in place and then add the bottle brush trees. Now, some of these trees did come from the Dollar Tree and some did come from Amazon. And once I had my gingerbread houses where I wanted them to be, then I just played around with the placement of each of these trees. Before committing to actually putting the trees in place permanently, I wanted to see what they would look like. And once I was happy with how the trees were going to be with my houses, then I just secured each of the trees in place onto the tray. And when I got the ones in the front, then I just spun the tray around and secured the trees to the back. I did have a few extra trees, so I wanted to add them in to my display as well. And again, I did like the placement, so I just turned the tray around so I could glue the trees where I wanted them to be when you're going to visualize it from the front. And I also added in some Dollar Tree lights. These are like fairy lights, and I think they look so pretty. This little gingerbread village, oh my gosh, I am so over the moon with how this project turned out. This was such a fun project. I would highly encourage you to give this one a try and see what you think. I think you'll be really happy with your results. Now, I had this sign that I was going to use for a different project, and it was a snowman at one time, but it's going to be a snowman once again. So I started by using some white chalk paint, and I painted the bottom portion of the sign because this is going to be the actual snowman. So 2/3 of the sign is the snowman. And it wasn't a thick coat of paint, it was just a light coat of the paint. Then I came back with some paint stir sticks, and once I had them measured off to the size that I wanted them to be, this will be the brim of the hat for the snowman, I used some Dollar Tree wood glue and I secured them together. I wasn't sure if they were going to stay exactly right, so I did use some Dollar Tree clamps, and that really helps to keep both of these pieces of wood in place where I want them to be while the glue is drying. And I did sand off the edges a little bit too, just to make sure it was nice and smooth. Then I came back with some fabric. Now this is homespun fabric, so definitely a country fabric print. And I used my Dollar Tree wood glue again because that's what I had. And once I had a lot of glue around the top portion of the Dollar Tree sign, then I smoothed down the fabric and I cut away the excess. I did leave probably about 1/4 of an inch around just to make sure it will fold over to the back of my sign. I secured those sides down with some wood glue and used the clamps again to keep the fabric secure while the glue was drying. Now I'm showing how I did this with the fabric on the sides of my snowman, but I also did this on the top. And once the brim of my snowman's hat had dried, I used some folk art wax. This is the dark wax. I painted that on the top of the brim and then all 4 sides. I did not put any on the back. Then I wiped away the excess wax, and this is what it looks like. By now, the snowman's hat, or the top, the material has dried, so now I can secure the brim in place. I'm going to use my Dollar Tree wood glue again just to secure those paint sticks to the front. And there's my snowman so far. My snowman needed a nose, so I used a large craft stick to shape a nose for my snowman. And then I used some orange paint. This is Crafter's Choice paint, and it is in the color pumpkin. And I gave that little piece of wood a good coat of paint on the top as well as the sides. Now, while that was drying, I did come back with some distressing ink, and I used that all the way around the white portion of my snowman sign. I want to give this more of a primitive look, so I also used the distressing ink all over the white portion of my sign. And I even did it on the nose for my snowman. Next, I secured the snowman's nose in place. And then I used a paint pen to draw his eyes. Now you could use vinyl if you wanted to cut it out with your Cricut machine, but for myself, I found it was just as easy to draw the eyes. As well as the snowman's mouth. Then I did take a little bit of white paint and just give some highlights to his eyes. Now for this, I'm actually making a bow for my snowman. So I just have lots of strips of homespun fabric, different kinds of ribbon, and these are pretty much remnants. So I'm just taking strips of everything and I just used some floral wire in the center to gather everything up to be a bow. And then I secured that bow onto the top corner of the snowman's hat. And I used a tinier bow that I glued right into the center. And then I just started adding in extras. I had little paper doilies. I used those. I used craft paper, like the wired craft paper, and put some curly cues in. I added some torn up paper and a pine cone, as well as some country buttons and some cinnamon sticks too. And I wanted it to look like he had like a little tag sticking out of his bow. So I just distressed the edges of some paper and tucked them under the buttons. Next, I came back with another craft stick and I had these tags that said Merry Christmas. So I just took the craft stick, cut it down to the size. It'll be a little bit larger for like a background for the Merry Christmas. And then I used my distressing ink all the way around the edges of the craft stick. I used a little bit of hot glue to secure the Merry Christmas on top of that. And I wanted to make it look like a sign, so I used some curly Q craft paper, that wired craft ribbon paper, and I hot glued that to the back of my Merry Christmas. And I used some little remnants of paper for the back to keep those in place. And then I secured the sign to the top of my snowman's hat. And then I used some more buttons to look like the buttons were holding the sign in place. And since this is a Christmas snowman, I did want to tuck in some pine branches as well. Look at how cute that is. Oh my goodness. Now, if you would have told me that I could make something like this with a Dollar Tree sign, I don't know if I would have believed you. I don't even believe that I did this myself, but I love how this snowman turned out, and he is going to be a very special Christmas gift for a very close friend. So I hope they enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making the snowman for them. Now, I found this really fun Christmas ornament at Walmart for $1.98. And it comes with 5 of these little balls on it. And I thought it would be really fun to turn this into cake pops. This is such an easy craft. All I did was take off each of those individual little pieces, and then I attached some gold stick. So the gold sticks are going to be the base of the cake pop. And I cut the gold sticks down to different sizes so that my cake pops will not all be exactly the same size. And I found these gold sticks at Walmart when I bought this Christmas ornament. So I'm just going to remove that wire in the center. And then I'm going to insert one of the gold sticks into the place where I removed the wire. And I'm just repeating that process with all of my cake pops. Look at how easy that is, and doesn't it look so real? And then I just took the cake pops and put them into a glass jar that I had. I believe I got this from Hobby Lobby, but just like that, we've got a project done. This would be great for a tiered tray or anywhere that you wanted to add something like this for your decorating. All right, now I know I showed this to you in an earlier video, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to make some fake marshmallows for your decorating. So I'm starting off with some air dry clay. This is by Crayola, and yes, there will be links in the description box below, but I'm just going to roll out some of this clay, and then I'm going to cut it down to the size that I want it to be for my marshmallows. Now these won't be exactly perfect when I'm first cutting them, but once I get the shapes of the marshmallows cut out to the size that they're going to be, then I'm just going to manipulate that clay a little bit with my fingers and roll it out and smush it down a little bit so that it will really look like marshmallows. I'm going to use these marshmallows for a lot of the crafts that I'm showing you how to do today. So you can have big marshmallows, medium-sized marshmallows, or even little tiny small marshmallows. And it doesn't matter what size you make these marshmallows. So even the really big ones, they still hold their shape and no cracking, no splitting, and they look fantastic when they're done. So if you want to do fake bakes for your crafts, you can easily with this air dry clay. Now, if you don't have air dry clay, Dollar Tree does have these wooden cubes. They're almost like the little dice that I've used in the past, but you can use those as well. And the marshmallows are super easy to paint, and this is what they look like when they're dry. And being prepared and having a lot of different size marshmallows will definitely make it easier for you when you're doing a lot of crafts. So for this craft, I have these plastic spoons that came in a set with like a teapot. I painted them with the nutmeg brown color by Apple Barrel, I believe, and it did take 2 coats, but once it was dry, then I did put a coat of Mod Podge on each of the spoons. I made sure to do the front, the back, the sides, everywhere, because these spoons are plastic, and if you don't coat them with something, the paint will peel off. Now, if you don't have plastic spoons, you can also use wooden spoons like these. And then some sprinkles. So what I'm going to do is use some brown hot glue, and I'm going to fill the spoons with this hot glue. And this hot glue looks so much like hot fudge. It is incredible. And I got a little bit excited at first because of how good it looked. So I didn't put the sprinkles on when the hot glue was still hot. So I did have to use a little bit more hot glue to make sure that the sprinkles would stick in place on the spoons. And you can see I added in some of my marshmallows to this spoon and then just different sprinkles. Now these sprinkles, I did get them on Amazon. They're very affordable, and as you can see, you get a lot of sprinkles. I find that it's easier to put the sprinkles onto something larger like a plate or even this painter's tray. It works so well for the sprinkles, and you can separate them out if you want to. And once I was happy with the sprinkles on my spoons, I added bows to the spoons, and now I have a really pretty addition for my tiered tray that definitely looks like hot fudge resting on some spoons. I'm going to be using these teapots. I've got a plastic one and I've also got a ceramic one. The first thing I did was paint them with red paint. I also took a plastic plate, and that's going to go on the bottom of my teapot. And I had 2 teapots that I did this with, so I repeated the process and put a red plate on the bottom of the other teapot. Then to fill in the top, I used cardboard and cut it down so that it would match the size of the teapot. And I secured it in place with hot glue. And I'm going to be adding whipped cream, so I'm going to cut down a couple of these styrofoam balls that I got from Dollar Tree and attach them to the teapot. And once I had the styrofoam ball in place, then I started putting the brown hot glue around the edge of the cardboard circle. And I did this in small sections. Then I came back with some sprinkles and added sprinkles to the hot glue. I find that it's easier by working in small sections with this hot glue because I don't want it to get solid before I put the sprinkles on. That is one big tip that I can offer to you if you're going to be doing this project, is do the hot glue in small sections, then attach the sprinkles, and then move on to the next section. Now I also wanted it to look like there was hot fudge dripping out of the spout of the teapot, so I added some hot glue to the spout. And I also added some to the plate. So it looks like the hot fudge is just dripping down all over. And by adding a little bit of sprinkles, I think this really helps. Then it was time for the whipped cream. So I came back with the Fast and Final spackling and I put that all around the top of the styrofoam ball that's on the top of my teapot. And I wasn't too happy with having it just like one solid line, so I did come back and kind of rough up the spackling a little bit. Then I added some fake peppermint candies, along with some chocolate sprinkles, and some fake chocolate. That is so cute. And for this teapot, I did also want to add some extra embellishments, so I cut down sections of ribbon and added a bow. And I also attached a tag that I had cut out just on regular paper that says hot cocoa. I used Mod Podge to secure it in place on the teapot. Then I came back with more of the brown hot glue and I just put a little bit of hot glue all the way around the edge of the hot cocoa tag. And I decided to add a little bit more of that hot glue to some peppermints that are on the plate and then a few sprinkles. I love how that turned out. But I wanted to have a small coffee cup or hot cocoa cup that matched and went along with my teapot. So I did the same process of painting a plastic teacup red. Then I added a styrofoam ball. Then I did the whipped cream, the hot fudge topping, and a little bit of glitter. And now I have a cup of hot cocoa next to my hot cocoa teapot. This is so cute. I love how this turned out. I loved it so much I had to do a couple of these teapots because it was such a fun craft to do. And since my crafts are getting bigger, I thought it would be fun to repeat that process on these Rainboots. These are so cute. So for the larger one, I just removed all of the embellishments. The little one is ceramic, so it didn't have any. And I'm going to be using this Deco Art silk paint in red. This stuff is so nice for projects like this. And I'm just going to paint each of these Rainboots. I did end up using 2 coats of this paint on each Rainboot because I really want to make sure I have a nice solid red base to the boots. Once I was done with the larger one, then I repeated the process with the smaller one. Now I've never done anything like this before, so I'm going to use the smaller Rainboot as my test project. So I did the same process like I have been doing, and I put that brown hot glue. I dripped that down around the top edge of the boot. Then I took a little piece of cardboard that I had cut out, put that in place. Then using the brown hot glue again, I just dripped down onto the side so it's covering the sides of the cardboard and it's also looking like hot fudge that's dripping out of the boot. And I even made it look like a drip of hot fudge on the front of the boot. Then I came back with the whipped cream and went around the top. And I didn't have a small enough styrofoam ball, so I did use a pumpkin that I had cut in half to be the filler for the top of the boot. I added in some fake chocolate and a couple of straws and some peppermint sprinkles. And I was really happy with how that process went, so I felt more confident going on to the larger boot. I did exactly the same thing, but since this is a larger piece, I did do the brown hot glue in small sections and attach some sprinkles. When I was happy with what it looked like, then I moved on to another section of the boot and added more sprinkles. I did the same thing on the front of the boot where I added some hot fudge and some more sprinkles. And after putting a styrofoam ball on the top, then I came back with the Fast and Final spackling and added whipped cream to the top of the boot. If you've never tried something like this, I really encourage you to try it because this was such a fun project. Then I added some straws and some sprinkles along with my little fake marshmallows to the top of the boot. Next, I came back with that brown hot glue to make it look like hot fudge drizzling down from the top of the whipped cream. Look at how adorable that is. I wanted to add a tag, so I cut out that same hot cocoa tag that I had used on an earlier project, and I secured that in place with some hot glue. And then I used some more sprinkles to act like they are holding that little hot cocoa sign in place in the whipped cream on the top of the boot. Like I said, this project was so much fun. I am so happy with how these rain boots turned out. They are so cute. And these are definitely something new, something different to add to my tiered tray decor, along with all of the other hot fudge pieces that I'm using this year for my decorating. So I got these cutting boards on Amazon, and these are a little bit different than the cutting boards that you'll find at Dollar Tree, but these are perfect for Christmas crafting. So what I'm going to do is take some puffy paint and I'm going to spread that around the majority of the bottom portion of this cutting board. My goal is to make this look like a bunch of frosting that's been spread out all over the board. And the puffy paint is perfect for this because it has some texture to it and it definitely resembles frosting. If you're going to be doing any gingerbread crafting this Christmas season, I would really encourage you to check out this puffy paint because it is perfect for any gingerbread craft that you want to create. And now I'm just taking a paintbrush and swirling the puffy paint around to get the shape and the texture that I want it to look like on the cutting board. Another really nice thing about the puffy paint is it doesn't crack. So no matter how much paint I put onto any of my projects, there's no cracks, no indentations, nothing. It works perfect. Next, I'm going to come back with this gingerbread man that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I removed all of the embellishments. I want to add some puffy paint to make it look more like a gingerbread cookie. If you can't find these gingerbread cookies at Hobby Lobby, any type of gingerbread cookie would do. You could even make one out of air dry clay, but I'm just taking some puffy paint, and this is actually from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to add a little bit of that paint to both of the hands and the legs of my gingerbread. And I thought I would add a couple of buttons down the front as well. Next, I'm going to take the gingerbread man and I'm going to put it on top of the cutting board, and it's actually going to go over top of the puffy paint. And next, I'm going to come back with some different fake peppermint pieces, and I'm going to put those onto my frosting on the cutting board. And I got this ornament at Hobby Lobby, and the reason I got it was because of the peppermints inside. There are so many peppermint pieces in here, and they're not real, they are fake, but these are perfect for Christmas crafts. So I took the top off of the ornament, and then I removed the peppermint candies, and I put a few of them onto the puffy paint. I thought it would also look really nice to take one of those peppermints and cover up that center hole at the top of the cutting board. Now I'm just going to take some fake sprinkles and sprinkle them onto my frosting, which is also the puffy paint. And I was inspired to make this cutting board after doing some searches on Pinterest. I've seen this cutting board a couple of different places, and you can actually buy it on Etsy as well. But I wanted to see if I could make it myself. Now, once I was happy with the sprinkles, then I did come back with a little bit of iridescent glitter and just sprinkle a little bit of that on top of the paint. And for my gingerbread man, I wanted him to have a face, so I used a black acrylic paint marker and I drew a face onto the gingerbread man. I did add a dot of white paint to each of the eyes so it looks like there's catch lights, and I took a red faux sprinkle and I used that for the gingerbread man's nose. And I did want to add a bow, and I found this really pretty ribbon at Hobby Lobby. It actually has a different design on each side. So one side is polka dots and the other side has stripes. So I just made a simple bow, and to secure it in the center, I used a zip tie that I got in a pack of zip ties from Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree zip ties are really great for projects where you want to make a bow out of ribbon. Then I came back with a smaller piece of ribbon and I secured that with hot glue to the center of my bow. That way the zip tie isn't going to show. And then I used a little bit more hot glue and secured the bow to the top portion of my cutting board. And just like that, the first project is done. And what's really nice with this cutting board, because I covered up that hole that's at the top with that peppermint piece, that hole from the back acts like a hanger, making it easy to hang up and display. I'm using a Dollar Tree glass mug. This time of year, Dollar Tree brings out all of their glassware, and I had plenty of that paint left, and I thought it would be really pretty to have a gingerbread mug as an accent to the other gingerbread pieces that I've created. So I just took that same acrylic paint and I painted the entire mug on the inside and the outside with the acrylic paint. And once that paint had dried, I came back with the puffy paint and I just created some different patterns and designs around the outside of the mug. And once I was happy with my patterns around the mug itself, then I came back to the top edge of the mug and I used more of the puffy paint to almost make it look like there was icing dripping down from the top. And this is what the mug looks like when it's dry. And I did take that outside and give it a coat of the spray paint too. But now I want to fill this mug, but I don't want to fill the entire mug. So I had this peppermint candy that I got from Walmart, and it actually fit perfect into the top of the mug. So then I just used a little bit of hot glue and secured it in place. Now I found this really cute gingerbread house at Hobby Lobby, and I thought this would be so pretty on the top of my mug. So I came back with a little bit of hot glue and I secured it to the center of the peppermint that's on top of the mug. Next, I came back with some Fast and Final spackling, and I'm going to add that to the top, and I want it to look like frosting. So I put some into a bowl, and then I came back with some high gloss Mod Podge and added that to the spackle. I wanted it to have a little bit more of a white color, so I added a little bit of the puffy paint, and I was curious if I added glitter if it would show up, so I added some glitter too. Next, I blended all of my ingredients together for my faux frosting, and then I scooped it into a frosting or a pastry bag. And I'm not really a pastry chef, so I don't know which tip I had on the end of the pastry bag, but it's more of a star tip. And then I just took my frosting and I covered the top of the mug. So anywhere where that peppermint was showing, I just covered it with the spackling and tried to make it look like the house was just tucked into the frosting in the center. I did come back with a little bit more glitter and put that on the frosting as well. Now I want to add a little bit of extra embellishments, and I found these gingerbread stickers at Hobby Lobby. So I took 2 of them and secured them together so the front and the back both look like a gingerbread man. And I put one on either side of the gingerbread house. Then I had some candy cane stickers and some peppermint pieces, and I tucked them down into the frosting too. I also had some really pretty red beads that look like candy, so I put those on. And I added in some fake candy canes, as well as adding in a few extra sprinkles. And this is how this gingerbread mug turned out. I think this is so cute. I'm so happy with this project. It was really easy to do, and I think it'll work great with my gingerbread theme. I found these wooden ornaments at Hobby Lobby, and they're $2.49, but at 50% off, they're the same price as if I were to get them at Dollar Tree. So I'm not going to use them as ornaments. I'm going to use them as gingerbread men. So I'm going to take that same acrylic paint that I've been using for all of these projects, and I'm going to paint the ornaments nutmeg and caramel colored acrylic paint. I made sure to paint the front and the back of each of the ornaments. Now the very tip of the ornament, that doesn't matter if it gets painted or not, because that's going to be tucked down into a crate. So once my paint had dried, I came back with the puffy paint and I added just a little squiggly line of it all the way around the edge of the ornament. And I just repeated that step on the other ornaments as well. Once the puffy paint had time to dry, then I came back with some black acrylic paint and I painted eyes on each of the ornaments. And if you don't have black acrylic paint, you could probably even use a Sharpie marker or an acrylic paint marker to do the same thing. And because I wasn't sure how big I wanted the eyes to be for the gingerbread men, I just kept adding a little bit more black paint to make the eyes larger and larger until I had them the size that I wanted them to be. I also painted on some eyebrows as well as a smile on each of the gingerbread men. And one of my gingerbread men is actually going to be a gingerbread lady, so I gave her some eyelashes. I also added a little bit of white paint to each eye for the catch lights. I like adding the white accents to the eyes. Then I dry brushed a little bit of red acrylic paint to make some cheeks for each of the gingerbread people. Now, while my gingerbread people were drying, then I came back with a Dollar Tree crate. These are so much fun to work with, especially during the holidays. And I found this really pretty nutmeg colored wax, so antiquing wax. So I painted that onto the crate and then I just wiped away the excess. That's going to give it a little bit of a lighter color stain once it's all finished. I've never seen antiquing wax like this before and I really liked it. I found it on Amazon, so I will be sure to leave a link in the description box in case you wanted to try it out too. Then I came back with some Dollar Tree floral foam and I just secured that down into the center of the crate. And I also added a bow to my gingerbread lady. Next, I came back with some faux pine stems and I cut individual pieces off and I tucked them down into the floral foam. This will be the back of my display. I also added in some smaller pieces of pine to add in just a little bit of something extra and of course some more texture. Now, once I was happy with how the back of the crate is looking with the pine, then I brought my gingerbread people in and I secured them with hot glue into the foam. Now I'm just going to come back with some more of those pine pieces and I'm just going to fill in the front part of the crate. Now I found these peppermint candies at Hobby Lobby and I thought they would be really pretty with my gingerbread people. So I cut off a couple of the peppermints and I tucked them into the crate, and then I just kept adding in more pine pieces. I want to fill in everything so that you can't see any of the floral foam. I added in some of the peppermints to the back, and then I also added in some candy canes to the front. And I thought it would be pretty with a few pine cones and then again some more of those red beads that look like candy. And just like that, my gingerbread people in a crate is complete. This was so much fun to do. I love how this turned out. It is so cute. I think I loved how all of these projects turned out. Anything with gingerbread just really makes me smile. And I can't believe it, but we have already reached the end of the video. Well, I hope that you loved crafting with me today as much as I enjoyed sharing these projects with you. If these gingerbread crafts inspired you, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I post new budget-friendly projects each and every week. And I don't want you to miss out on a single way to transform your space this Christmas. Remember, crafting isn't about how much money you spend, it's about the love and creativity that you put into each and every project that you create. Until next time, stay crafty and keep creating.